The rain hammered against the cafe windows like tiny fists demanding entry, each droplet racing down the glass in frantic streams that blurred the Brooklyn street beyond. I pressed my palm against the cool surface, watching my breath fog the pain as the clock above the espresso machine ticked past 11 p.m. My feet ached in a way that had become familiar, a dull, persistent throb that started in my heels and radiated up my calves after 14 hours of standing, smiling, serving. "Emma, table 6 needs clearing," Marcy called from behind the counter, her voice weary but kind. She'd been managing this place for 20 years, and it showed in the permanent crease between her eyebrows and the silver threading through her dark hair. "On it," I mumbled, grabbing the gray plastic bin we used for dirty dishes. The cafe was nearly empty now, just a couple nursing cold coffees in the corner and a businessman typing furiously on his laptop. The fluorescent lights made everything look washed out, tired. Like me, I'd moved to New York 3 months ago with exactly 2 suitcases. A nursing degree I couldn't afford to complete, and dreams that seemed laughable now. The studio apartment I shared with 2 other girls cost more than I'd ever imagined rent could cost. Most nights I survived on the leftover pastries Marcy let us take home. Day-old croissants and muffins that were better than anything I'd eaten growing up in rural Pennsylvania. The bell above the door chimed, and I glanced up reflexively. He stepped inside like he was entering somewhere he owned, which, for all I knew, maybe he did. Water darkened his charcoal suit jacket at the shoulders, but he didn't seem to notice or care. 3 men followed him, massive, silent shadows in dark clothing that screamed security even to my inexperienced eyes. They fanned out with practiced precision, one positioning himself by the door, another scanning the cafe's interior with cold, assessing eyes. But it was him I couldn't stop looking at. Tall, broad-shouldered, probably mid-30s. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and strong lines, with a jaw that suggested he could take a punch and deliver one twice as hard. His eyes, even from across the room, were impossibly dark, almost black in the harsh lighting. He moved with the kind of confidence that came from never having to explain yourself, never having to apologize for taking up space. The scent hit me as he passed my station. Expensive cologne, cedar, and something darker, mixed with rain, and the faint metallic tang that I couldn't quite place. Danger, my instincts whispered. This man is dangerous. "Emma," Marcy hissed, and I realized I'd been staring, frozen with the dish bin in my hands like an idiot. He took the corner booth, the best seat in the house with a clear view of both entrances and the street outside. One of his men remained standing beside the table, hand resting inside his jacket in a way that made my stomach clench. The businessman suddenly remembered he had somewhere else to be, closing his laptop with shaking hands and practically running for the door. "I'll take his table," Marcy said quickly, but her hands trembled as she reached for her order pad. "No." The word came out before I could stop it. "I've got it." She looked at me like I'd volunteered to pet a sleeping tiger. Maybe I had. My legs felt unsteady as I approached his booth, the dish bin abandoned at the counter. Up close, he was even more striking, and more terrifying. A thin scar traced along his left cheekbone, pale against his olive skin. His hands rested on the table, and I noticed his knuckles were slightly scarred, the marks of someone who'd thrown plenty of punches. "What can I get you?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. He didn't look up immediately, his attention fixed on his phone. When he finally raised his eyes to meet mine, I felt the impact like a physical thing, a jolt that ran down my spine and settled somewhere deep in my chest. His gaze was intense, assessing, taking in every detail of my appearance in a single sweep that made me acutely aware of my stained apron, my hair escaping its ponytail. The exhaustion I knew showed on my face. Coffee. Black. His voice was deep, textured with an accent I couldn't quite place. Italian, maybe, softened by years in America. "And whatever pastry is fresh." "Nothing's fresh at this hour," I said honestly, then immediately regretted it. "But the apple turnovers are from this afternoon. They're still good." The corner of his mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. "Honest. That's rare." One of his men shifted, and I caught the outline of a gun holster beneath his jacket. My heart kicked against my ribs. These weren't businessmen. These weren't even criminals trying to blend in. These were predators wearing human skin. comfortable with violence in a way that made my mouth go dry. "I'll get your coffee," I said, stepping back. "What's your name?" He tilted his head slightly, studying me with unsettling focus. "Emma." I swallowed hard. "Emma Blake. Emma." He repeated it slowly, like he was tasting each syllable. "Thank you, Emma." I fled back to the counter, my hands shaking as I poured his coffee. Marcy grabbed my wrist, her grip tight. "Do you know who that is?" she whispered urgently. "Should I?" "That's Dante Salvatore." She said the name like it should mean something, her eyes wide with fear. "He owns half of Brooklyn, restaurants, clubs, construction companies, and that's just what's legal." She leaned closer, her breath warm against my ear. "They say he's the youngest Don of the Salvatore family, that he took over when his father was killed 5 years ago and consolidated power in 6 months. 6 months, Emma. Do you know how many people died in those 6 months?" I didn't want to know. I carried the coffee and turnover back to his table, my heart hammering so hard I was sure he could hear it. He'd put his phone away and was now watching the street through the window with the kind of attention that suggested he was always waiting for something bad to happen. "Your coffee, Mr. Salvatore," I said, setting it down carefully. His eyes snapped to mine, surprise flickering across his face before his expression shuttered closed. "You know who I am." Apparently everyone does. I placed the plate with the turnover beside his cup. "Will there be anything else?" "Sit." It wasn't a request. The guard beside him pulled out the opposite bench, and I found myself sliding into it before my brain caught up with my body. This close, I could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes, the way his jaw tightened as he studied me. "You're not from here," he said. "Your accent. Pennsylvania? Small town near Pittsburgh." I clasped my hands in my lap to keep them from shaking. "How did you—" "I pay attention." He took a sip of his coffee, grimacing slightly. "This is terrible." "I know. The machine's old." Why was I apologizing for bad coffee to a mob boss? We can't afford a new one. Who owns this place? "Marcy. She's the manager and owner. Been here 20 years. He nodded slowly, like he was filing away information for later use. "And you?" "How long have you been in New York?" 3 months. "Nursing school?" His gaze dropped to the medical journal I'd stuffed in my apron pocket. A second-hand copy I'd bought for $2, dreaming of a future that seemed impossibly far away. Couldn't finish. Too expensive. The admission hurt, a reminder of everything I'd failed at. Now I serve coffee and hope the tips are enough to cover rent. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite sympathy, but acknowledgement. "This city eats people like you alive." "People like me?" "Hopeful ones." He broke off a piece of the turnover, eating it slowly, "the ones who still believe hard work means something." "And what do you believe in, Mr. Salvatore?" The question hung between us, dangerous and intimate. His men tensed, hands moving toward their weapons, but he held up one hand and they froze. "Power," he said simply. "Loyalty. Family." His eyes held mine. "And paying debts." The bell above the door chimed again. I barely registered it, too caught up in the intensity of Dante Salvatore's gaze, the way he looked at me like he was trying to solve a puzzle. But something made me glance toward the entrance. The man who walked in was wrong. Everything about him was wrong, from the way his hand stayed inside his rain-soaked jacket, to the dead look in his eyes, to the rigid set of his shoulders. He scanned the cafe quickly, his gaze locking onto our booth. Time slowed down, became viscous and strange. I saw him pull the gun from his jacket, saw the black metal gleaming under the fluorescent lights, saw his finger tighten on the trigger, saw the barrel align with Dante Salvatore's head. My body moved before my mind caught up. I grabbed Dante's arm and yanked, throwing all my weight backward. His coffee cup crashed to the floor as he toppled sideways with me, both of us sliding into the narrow space between the booth and the wall just as the first shot exploded through the cafe. The sound was deafening, impossibly loud in the small space. Glass shattered somewhere, the window, or maybe the display case. Marcy screamed. Another shot, then another, each one punctuated by the thunderous return fire from Dante's guards. I was pinned beneath him, his body covering mine completely. one hand cradling the back of my head, while the other reached for a gun I hadn't realized he was carrying. His weight pressed me into the worn linoleum floor, his heart pounding against my chest in a rhythm that matched my own terrified pulse. "Stay down," he growled into my ear, his breath hot against my skin. More gunfire. The acrid smell of gunpowder mixed with the coffee and pastries. Someone was shouting in Italian. Harsh, urgent commands. Footsteps pounded toward the door, then the sound of a body hitting the ground with a sickening thud, then silence. Dante lifted his head, scanning the cafe with lethal focus. His guards were already moving, checking the shooter, securing the perimeter. One of them spoke rapidly into a phone, his voice low and urgent. "Clear, boss," one of the guards called out. Only then did Dante look down at me. His face was inches from mine, so close I could count his eyelashes, see the thin ring of gold around his pupils. His hand was still cradling my head, protective and possessive in equal measure. "You pulled me back," he said, his voice rough with something I couldn't identify. "You saved my life. I saw the gun." My voice came out as barely a whisper. "I didn't think. You just saved my life," he repeated, his thumb brushing across my cheekbone in a gesture that felt shockingly intimate. "Do you understand what that means?" I didn't. I couldn't think past the adrenaline flooding my system, the way my entire body was shaking, the impossible warmth of his touch against my cold skin. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Dante's expression hardened, and he pulled back, helping me to my feet with surprising gentleness. His hands lingered on my arms, steadying me as my legs threatened to give out. "Boss, we need to move," one of his guards said urgently. "Police are 2 minutes out," but Dante didn't move. He kept his eyes locked on mine, his hands still gripping my arms like he was afraid I might disappear. "What's your address?" he demanded. "What? Your address, Emma. Now." I stammered it out, my brain too scrambled to question why he wanted it. He repeated it to one of his guards, who nodded and disappeared outside into the rain. "Mr. Salvatore, we have to go," another guard insisted. Dante reached into his jacket. I flinched involuntarily and pulled out a card, pressing it into my trembling hand. It was simple, expensive-feeling paper with just a phone number embossed in black. "If you need anything at all, you call that number." His voice was intense, commanding. "Do you understand?" "I don't understand any of this," I whispered. "You will." He lifted my hand, his thumb tracing across my knuckles in a gesture that felt like a brand. "In this world, debts must be paid, Emma Blake, and I always pay my debts." Then he was gone, disappearing into the night with his men, leaving me standing in the wreckage of the cafe with shaking hands, broken glass crunching beneath my feet, and the certain knowledge that my life had just irrevocably changed. Marcy emerged from behind the counter, her face pale, mascara streaked down her cheeks. "Oh God, Emma. Oh God, what did you just do?" I looked down at the card in my hand, at the number that felt like both a promise and a threat. "I don't know," I whispered. But the warmth of his touch still lingered on my skin, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just crossed a line I could never uncross, that I'd bound myself to Dante Salvatore in ways I was only beginning to understand. The police kept me at the cafe until 3 a.m, asking the same questions over and over until the words stopped making sense. What did I see? Why did I pull him down? Did I know Dante Salvatore? Had I ever seen the shooter before? I answered truthfully, mostly. Yes, I saw the gun. No, I'd never met Mr. Salvatore before tonight. No, I didn't know why someone would want to kill him. The lie sat bitter on my tongue, but something told me that admitting I knew exactly who he was would only invite more questions I couldn't answer. The detective, a tired-looking woman named Chen with kind eyes and a suspicious mouth, studied me for a long moment before finally letting me go. "Be careful, Miss Blake," she said quietly. "Men like Salvatore, they're dangerous, even when they're grateful. Especially when they're grateful," I thought, but didn't say. The subway ride home was a blur of fluorescent lights and my own reflection in the dark windows. Pale face, haunted eyes, blood on my apron that wasn't mine. The shooter's blood, probably. He'd died on the cafe floor while I hid behind Dante Salvatore's body. I'd saved a mob boss's life. The thought should have terrified me. It did terrify me, But underneath the fear was something else. Something warm and dangerous that I didn't want to examine too closely. My apartment was dark when I finally climbed the 4 flights of stairs, my legs shaking with exhaustion. Jade and Melissa, my roommates, were both asleep. Jade snoring softly in the room we shared. Melissa's door closed tight. I stripped off my stained uniform in the bathroom, shoving it into the trash. My hands were still trembling as I stood under the scalding shower spray, trying to wash away the smell of gunpowder and expensive cologne and fear, but I couldn't wash away the memory of his eyes. The way he'd looked at me like I was something precious and breakable and utterly his. I crawled into bed just as dawn was breaking, the card he'd given me tucked under my pillow like a talisman, or a curse. I woke to someone pounding on the apartment door. Jade groaned from her bed. "Make it stop," she mumbled into her pillow. I stumbled out of bed, my body aching in places I didn't know could ache, and peered through the peephole. A man in an expensive suit stood in our dingy hallway, looking as out of place as a diamond in a trash heap. My stomach dropped. "Emma Blake?" He called through the door, his voice professional and crisp. I cracked the door open, keeping the chain lock engaged. "Yes?" "My name is Marco Rossi. I work for Mr. Salvatore." He held up an envelope, thick and cream-colored. "He asked me to deliver this to you personally." Jade was suddenly behind me, wide awake, peering around my shoulder. "Who the hell is that?" "Nobody," I said quickly. "Wrong address. Miss Blake, please." Marco's expression didn't change. Mr. Salvatore was very insistent that this reach you today. I unhooked the chain with shaking fingers and opened the door just wide enough to take the envelope. Marco nodded once, professionally, then turned and walked back down the hallway, like he hadn't just delivered something from one of New York's most dangerous men to a 4th-floor walk-up in a building where the elevator had been broken for 6 months. "Emma." Jade grabbed my arm. What the actual fuck? I closed the door and leaned against it, staring at the envelope. My name was written across it in bold, masculine handwriting. Not printed, handwritten, like he'd taken the time himself. "Open it," Jade demanded. Inside was a letter on heavy cardstock paper, and beneath it, a check that made my vision blur. $50,000. "Holy shit," Jade breathed over my shoulder. "Holy fucking shit, Emma." My hands shook as I unfolded the letter. "Emma, you saved my life. This debt cannot be repaid with money alone, but accept this as a first installment. Consider it compensation for the trauma you experienced and the loss of your employment. I'm told the cafe will be closed for repairs for at least 2 weeks. Use this to finish your nursing degree. Use it for rent. Use it for whatever you need. It's yours. No strings attached. But know this. I protect what's mine. And whether you accept it or not, you became mine the moment you pulled me behind you. My men will be watching to ensure your safety. You won't see them, but they're there. If anyone threatens you, if you need anything at all, call the number I gave you." "Oh my God," Jade whispered. "Oh my God, Emma. What did you do?" I read the letter 3 more times, my heart racing faster with each pass. I protect what's mine. The possessiveness in those words should have terrified me. It did terrify me, but it also made something warm unfurl in my chest, something that felt dangerously like safety, like being seen, like mattering to someone for the first time since I'd arrived in this city that chewed up dreamers and spit them out broken. "I saved his life," I said numbly. "Whose life?" "Emma, you're scaring me," I told her. "All of it. The cafe, the shooting, Dante Salvatore covering my body with his own while bullets flew, the way he'd looked at me like I was something precious. The card with his number." Jade's face went through approximately 15 different emotions before settling on horrified fascination. "You saved a mob boss's life, and now he thinks he owns you." "He doesn't own me," but my voice lacked conviction. "That's literally what that letter says." She pointed at the paper shaking in my hands. "He called you his, Emma, his. He's just grateful." Even I didn't believe it. Melissa emerged from her room then, hair wrapped in a silk scarf, eyes still puffy with sleep. She took one look at the check in my hand and whistled low. "Drug money or sugar daddy?" "Worse," Jade said. "Mafia boyfriend." "He's not my boyfriend." My voice came out too loud, too desperate. "I don't even know him. Last night was the first time we ever spoke, but I could still feel the weight of his body covering mine, still smell his cologne, still see the intensity in his eyes when he'd said I always pay my debts. Melissa plucked the check from my fingers, examining it like it might be fake. This is real. Holy shit. This is real. She looked at me, her expression serious. Emma, you need to be careful. Men like that don't give away money for nothing. He said no strings attached. And you believed him? Melissa shook her head. Honey, there are always strings. You just can't see them yet. I tried to return to normal over the next week. I really did. But normal didn't exist anymore. The cafe remained closed. Crime scene tapes still stretched across the shattered windows. Marcy called me twice. Once to tell me she was okay. Once to tell me she was selling the place and moving back to Ohio to live with her sister. I can't do this anymore, Emma, she said, her voice broken. I'm too old for bullets and blood. I deposited the check, feeling guilty and grateful and terrified in equal measure. Paid 3 months' rent in advance, which made my roommates cry with relief. Bought groceries. Real groceries, not day-old pastries and ramen. Called the nursing school and asked about re-enrollment for the spring semester. The admissions counselor was surprised but helpful. With your previous credits, you'd only need 18 months to complete the program. When can you start? January, I heard myself say. I can start in January. It felt like someone else's life, someone who had choices, someone who wasn't looking over her shoulder every time she left the apartment, wondering if Dante Salvatore's invisible guards were really out there, watching. I never saw them, but sometimes I felt them, a prickling awareness at the back of my neck when I walked to the corner store. A shadow that moved too deliberately in my peripheral vision, a car that seemed to idle too long at the end of the block. You won't see them, but they're there. I should have felt violated, surveilled, but instead, I felt safe. Safer than I'd felt since moving to this city where everyone was a stranger and danger lurked in every dark subway car, every late-night walk home. The card stayed under my pillow. I took it out sometimes, late at night when Jade was asleep, and traced my finger over the embossed numbers. I never called. What would I even say? Thank you for the money and the surveillance state? Thank you for making me feel like I matter? Thank you for looking at me like I'm worth protecting? 10 days after the shooting, I got another delivery. This time it was a different man, younger, with sharp eyes and a messenger bag slung across his chest. He handed me a small package wrapped in black paper with a silver ribbon. From Mr. Salvatore, he said, then disappeared down the stairs before I could respond. Inside was a phone, brand new, top of the line, already activated. And a note in that same bold handwriting. Your old phone was damaged in the incident. This one is secure. My number is already programmed. Use it. I stared at it for a long moment, my heart hammering. Then I turned on my old phone, cracked screen and all, to find 17 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize, and 3 voicemails. The first was hang up. The second was heavy breathing. The third made my blood run cold. You stupid bitch, a man's voice snarled, slurred with alcohol or drugs or both. You think you're safe? You think Salvatore can protect you forever? Marco Castellano is dead because of you. You killed my brother, and I'm going to make you pay. The message ended. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Marco Castellano, the shooter. He had a brother. I grabbed the new phone with trembling fingers and pulled up the only contact saved. Dante. My thumb hovered over the call button for what felt like an eternity. Then I pressed it. He answered on the first ring, Emma. Just my name, but the way he said it, relief and possession and hunger all wrapped up in 2 syllables, made my breath catch. Someone left me a message, I said, my voice shaking. Marco Castellano's brother. He says... I know what he says. His voice turned hard, cold enough to freeze. Give me your location. I'm at my apartment, but stay there. Don't open the door for anyone except my men. Do you understand, Dante? Do you understand? More forceful now, laced with an authority that made my spine straighten automatically. Yes. Good girl. The approval in his voice sent warmth flooding through my veins. I'll be there in 20 minutes. You don't have to. Yes. he said softly, dangerously. I do. He hung up. I stood there holding the phone, my heart racing, wondering what the hell I'd just done. Jade emerged from the bathroom, took one look at my face and froze. What happened? He's coming here. Who's... Oh no, Emma. The mob boss is coming here, to our apartment? His men will be with him, I said weakly. That's supposed to make me feel better? It didn't make me feel better either, but it also made something dark and warm curl through my chest, something that felt like anticipation. I protect what's mine. I changed clothes 3 times before settling on jeans and a simple black sweater. Nothing too revealing, nothing that looked like I was trying too hard. Jade watched me with increasingly worried eyes. You like him, she said finally. I don't even know him. That's not what I said. I didn't have an answer for that, because she was right. I did like him. Liked the way he looked at me like I was the only person in the room. Liked the way he'd covered my body with his own without hesitation. Liked the dark promise in his eyes, and the lethal grace in his movements, and the way he made me feel seen in a way I'd never been seen before. It was insane. Dangerous. Possibly suicidal. But I couldn't stop thinking about him. The knock came exactly 20 minutes after his call. Sharp, authoritative. I checked the peephole and saw 2 massive men in suits flanking the door. Miss Blake, one of them said. Mr. Salvatore is on his way up. I opened the door and they entered first, scanning the apartment with professional efficiency that would have been funny if it wasn't so terrifying. One of them checked the windows, the other the fire escape access. Then Dante walked in, and the world narrowed to just him. He was dressed more casually than that night at the cafe. Dark jeans, black button-down shirt, leather jacket that probably cost more than my yearly rent. His hair was slightly disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it. But his eyes were the same, intense, possessive, seeing straight through me to all the secret, desperate parts I tried to hide. Emma. He crossed the room in 3 strides, his hands coming up to frame my face with surprising gentleness. Are you hurt? No, The message scared me. His jaw tightened, muscles jumping beneath his skin. Let me hear it. I played the voicemail on my old phone, watched his expression darken with each hateful word, watched violence flash through his eyes like lightning through storm clouds. When it ended, he pulled me against his chest in a move that felt both protective and possessive. I could feel his heart beating beneath my cheek, fast and hard, matching my own frantic rhythm. Luca Castellano, he said quietly, speaking to one of his guards. Find him. Now, boss. Now. The single word was laced with enough menace to make even his own men flinch. They left quickly, leaving us alone in my cramped apartment, with Jade watching from the doorway of her bedroom like she was witnessing a car crash in slow motion. Dante's hands moved to my shoulders, holding me at arm's length so he could study my face. Pack a bag. What? You're not safe here. Not anymore. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone in that same gesture from the cafe, achingly gentle from such dangerous hands. You're coming with me. I'm not going anywhere with you. The words came out steadier than I felt, but my heart was hammering against my ribs. Dante's eyes darkened, his jaw tightening. This isn't a negotiation, Emma. Yes, it is. I stepped back, putting distance between us even though every cell in my body wanted to move closer. I appreciate the concern, but I'm not leaving my home because of some threatening voicemail. Some threatening voicemail? His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Luca Castellano is a rabid dog. His brother tried to kill me, and now he blames you for Marco's death. Do you understand what that means? It means I call the police. He laughed. A harsh, bitter sound. The police can't protect you from men like Luca. They can't protect you from the kind of people I deal with every day. He moved closer, crowding into my space until I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. But I can. By making me a prisoner. By keeping you alive. His hand cupped my face again, thumb tracing my jawline. You saved my life, Emma. Now let me save yours. Jade cleared her throat from the doorway. Emma? Maybe you should listen to him. Jade. I'm serious. If this psycho knows where you live... She trailed off, her eyes wide with fear. What if he comes here when you're not home? What if Melissa and I are here? The thought made my stomach clench. I hadn't considered that. Hadn't thought beyond my own stubborn need for independence. Dante saw the shift in my expression and pressed his advantage. I have a secure property, gated, guarded, safe. You'll have your own space, your own privacy, but you'll be protected. For how long? Until Luca Castellano is no longer a threat. His eyes held mine, intense and unwavering, however long that takes. I knew what he meant. However long it took to find Luca and... What? Kill him? Make him disappear? The casual acceptance of violence in his voice should have terrified me. Instead, it made me feel protected in a way I'd never felt before. Okay, I whispered. Okay, I'll go. Relief flashed across his face, quickly masked. Pack enough for 2 weeks. Comfortable clothes, whatever you need. Jade helped me pack, throwing things into my battered suitcase with shaking hands. Are you sure about this? She whispered. Emma, this is insane. I know. He's a criminal. I know that too. But you're going anyway. She studied my face, then sighed. You really do like him. I didn't answer. Just zipped the suitcase and grabbed my new phone, leaving the old one behind like I was shedding an old skin. Dante was waiting by the door, speaking quietly into his own phone in rapid Italian. He ended the call when he saw me, his eyes sweeping over my face like he was memorizing every detail. Ready? His voice was gentler now. No, but let's go anyway. The car waiting downstairs was exactly what I expected. A black SUV with tinted windows and a driver who looked like he could bench press a building. Dante's hand rested on the small of my back as he guided me inside, the touch possessive and protective in equal measure. The interior smelled like leather and his cologne. He slid in beside me, close enough that our thighs pressed together, and I felt the heat of him through my jeans. Where are we going? I asked, as the car pulled into traffic. My estate in Westchester, about an hour north of the city. He shifted to face me, one arm stretched along the back of the seat, his fingers just barely brushing my shoulder. You'll be comfortable there. Do you live there? Sometimes. I have several properties. His fingers traced small circles on my shoulder, the touch absent-minded but electrifying. But yes, I'll be staying there while you're under my protection. Under my protection. The words should have felt oppressive. Instead, they felt like a promise. We drove in silence for a while, the city giving way to suburbs, then to tree-lined roads that wound through increasingly expensive neighborhoods. I watched the landscape change through the window, hyper-aware of every point where our bodies touched, every brush of his fingers against my shoulder. Tell me about yourself, Dante said suddenly. I glanced at him, surprised. What do you want to know? Everything. His dark eyes studied me with that same intense focus. Why did you come to New York? Why nursing? My mom was a nurse. The words came easier than I expected. She died when I was 16, cancer. I watched her care for other people even when she was dying herself, and I thought, if I could do that for someone else, make them feel less alone, maybe it would mean something. His expression softened almost imperceptibly. And your father? Gone before I was born. It was just me and Mom, then just me. I pulled at a loose thread on my jeans. After she died, I lived with my aunt in Pennsylvania, small town, no opportunities. So I saved everything I could and came here. Brave, he said quietly. Stupid, more like. I had no idea what I was getting into. Still brave. His hand moved from my shoulder to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear, the gesture achingly intimate. Do you miss it? Pennsylvania? Sometimes. It was simple there. Safe. I looked at him. Not like here. No. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Not like here. What about you? I heard myself ask. Were you born into this life? His expression shuddered closed. Yes. My father was Don before me. His father before him. It's in my blood. He paused. My mother tried to get us out when I was young. Wanted to take me and my sister away, start fresh somewhere safe. What happened? My father found out. He made sure she understood that wasn't an option. The casual way he said it belied the violence underneath. She died 2 years later. Heart attack, the doctors said, but I know better. I'm sorry. He shrugged, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. It taught me an important lesson. In this world, there's no escape. You either embrace what you are or you die trying to be something else. That's a terrible lesson. That's survival. His eyes met mine. You'll learn that too, eventually. The car turned through massive iron gates that swung open automatically. We drove up a long, tree-lined driveway, and then the house came into view. House was an understatement. It was an estate. A sprawling Italian villa in gray stone and terracotta tile, surrounded by manicured gardens and tall walls topped with security cameras. Fountains sparkled in the fading afternoon light. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter with dogs that looked like they could take down a bear. "Welcome home," Dante said softly. A woman in her 50s met us at the door. Elegant, silver-haired, with kind eyes and a knowing smile. "Mr. Salvatore, welcome back. Teresa, this is Emma Blake. She'll be staying with us for a while." He rested his hand on my lower back again. "Please prepare the rose suite for her." "Of course." Teresa smiled at me warmly. "Welcome, Miss Blake. I'm the housekeeper. If you need anything at all, just let me know." The interior was even more stunning than the exterior. Marble floors, original artwork, soaring ceilings with intricate moldings. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. A reminder of exactly how different Dante's world was from mine. "Your suite is on the second floor," Dante said, guiding me up a curved staircase. "Private bedroom, bathroom, sitting room. You'll have everything you need." He opened a door to reveal a suite larger than my entire apartment. The bedroom was dominated by a massive 4-poster bed with silk sheets the color of rose petals. French doors opened onto a balcony overlooking the gardens. The bathroom had a soaking tub and a shower with more jets than I could count. "This is too much," I whispered. "This is what you deserve." He set my suitcase on the bed. "Dinner is at 7. Teresa will show you to the dining room." He started to leave, and panic flared in my chest. "Dante, wait." He turned, one eyebrow raised. "Thank you." The words felt inadequate. "For all of this." He crossed back to me in 2 strides, his hand cupping my face with that same surprising gentleness. "I told you, Emma. I protect what's mine." His thumb traced my lower lip. "And you are mine now, whether you accept it or not." Then he was gone, leaving me alone in my gilded cage with my heart racing and his touch still burning on my skin. I spent the next hour exploring the suite, unpacking my meager belongings into the massive walk-in closet where they looked pathetic and out of place. I showered in the marble bathroom, trying not to think about the cost of the luxury soap or the softness of the towels. At 7, Teresa knocked softly and led me through the maze of hallways to a formal dining room with a table that could seat 20. Dante sat at the head, changed into a fresh shirt, looking every inch the dangerous Don he was. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair at his right. The meal was incredible. Pasta with fresh seafood, crusty bread, wine that probably cost more than my old phone. We ate in silence for a while, but it wasn't uncomfortable. He watched me with that intense focus, like I was a puzzle he was determined to solve. "What are you thinking?" he asked finally. "That this feels like a dream." I took a sip of wine. "Or maybe a nightmare. I haven't decided which yet. Which would you prefer?" The question hung between us, heavy with meaning. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Part of me wants to run screaming, but another part..." "Another part?" His voice was low, dangerous. "Feels safe here. With you." The admission felt like stepping off a cliff. "Even though I know I shouldn't." "No," he agreed, "you shouldn't." He reached across the table, his fingers tangling with mine. "But you do anyway. This is insane." "Yes." His thumb traced circles on my palm. "But some of the best things are." My phone buzzed. The new one he'd given me. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "Found him. Warehouse in Red Hook. Sending location." Dante's expression hardened. He pulled his hand away. "All business now. I have to go." "Now?" "Yes." He stood, but paused beside my chair. "Stay inside. Don't open the doors or windows. My men are everywhere, but I need you to be careful. You're going after him, Luca." He didn't deny it, just looked at me with those dark, dangerous eyes. He threatened what's mine. There are consequences for that. Dante. He bent down, his lips brushing against my forehead in a gesture so tender it made my breath catch. I'll be back before morning. Wait for me. Then he was gone, and I was left alone in the vast dining room with the taste of expensive wine on my tongue, and the certain knowledge that somewhere in Brooklyn, Luca Castellano was about to learn exactly what happened when you threatened Dante Salvatore's property. Threatened me. I couldn't sleep. The bed was impossibly comfortable, the sheets softer than anything I'd ever touched, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw Dante's face. The cold fury in his expression when he'd read that text. The casual acceptance of violence. He was going to hurt Luca Castellano. Maybe kill him. Because of me. I paced the suite until midnight, then gave up and wrapped myself in the silk robe I'd found in the bathroom. The house was quiet, but not silent. I could hear the low murmur of voices from somewhere below, footsteps in distant hallways, the occasional crackle of a radio, guards, everywhere. I stepped onto the balcony, breathing in the cool night air. The garden stretched out below, lit by soft landscape lighting that made everything look like a painting. Beyond the walls, I could see the lights of other estates, the distant glow of the city. Can't sleep? I spun around, heart leaping into my throat. A woman stood in the doorway of my suite, late 20s, beautiful in a sharp, dangerous way, dark hair cut in a sleek bob, designer clothes, and eyes that assessed me like I was a threat. Who are you? My voice came out steadier than I felt. Alessia Salvatore, Dante's sister. She stepped onto the balcony, moving with the same predatory grace as her brother. I wanted to meet the woman who saved his life. I didn't know he had a sister. He doesn't talk about me much. I'm the black sheep of the family, a bitter smile. I wanted out. He convinced me to stay. She leaned against the balcony railing, studying me. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone harder. More calculated. She tilted her head. You're soft, sweet, not the type my brother usually goes for. He doesn't go for me, I'm just... His? Alessia laughed. Oh, honey, you're absolutely his. I saw the way he looked at you when he brought you in. Like you're the only real thing in a world of shadows. She paused. It's been a long time since I've seen him look at anyone like that. My cheeks heated. I barely know him. That won't matter to Dante. When he wants something, he takes it. When he claims something, he keeps it. Her expression turned serious, but I need you to understand something. My brother is dangerous, not just to his enemies, to everyone around him. People who get close to him end up hurt or dead or worse. Why are you telling me this? Because despite everything, I love him. And I think he actually cares about you, which means you're in more danger than you realize. She pushed off the railing. Be careful, Emma Blake. In this world, even the people trying to protect you can destroy you. She left as silently as she'd arrived, leaving me alone with my racing thoughts and the weight of her warning. Dante returned at 4 a.m. I heard the cars pull up, heard voices in the foyer below, then footsteps on the stairs coming closer. I was sitting on the bed, still wearing the silk robe, unable to even pretend to sleep. He appeared in my doorway, and my breath caught. Blood spattered his white shirt, not his, I prayed. His knuckles were split and bruised. His hair was disheveled, his jaw tight with residual violence. But his eyes found mine with an intensity that made my heart stutter. You're awake, he said softly. I couldn't sleep. I stood up, my legs unsteady. Are you hurt? No. He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. The blood isn't mine. Is he dead? Luca? No. Dante moved closer, and I could smell smoke and copper on him, but he understands now what happens when you threaten what's mine. He won't bother you again. How can you be sure? Because I made him very certain of the consequences if he does. His voice was flat, emotionless. Then his eyes softened as they traced over my face. You're scared of me now. No. The word came out before I could think. I'm not scared of you. You should be. I know. I closed the distance between us, my hand reaching up to touch his bruised knuckles, but I'm not. He caught my wrist, his grip gentle despite the violence still thrumming through him. "Emma, you need to understand what I am. What I do. I hurt people. I kill people. I run an empire built on blood and fear. I know." "And you're still not afraid?" His thumb traced circles on my wrist, right over my racing pulse. "I'm terrified," I whispered. "But not of you. Of this. Of how you make me feel." Something shifted in his expression. Hunger and possession, and something deeper, more dangerous. "How do I make you feel?" "Like I matter. Like I'm worth protecting. Like I'm—" I swallowed hard. "Like I'm seen." He pulled me closer, his free hand cupping my face. "You are seen, Emma. The strength you try to hide. I see every part of you. The loneliness you carry. The way you pretend to be invisible when you're the most visible thing in any room. Dante, I should let you go." His forehead pressed against mine. "I should send you away. Keep you safe from my world. But I can't. I won't. You're mine now, and I'm too selfish to give you up. I don't want you to give me up." The confession felt like surrender. His control snapped. He kissed me, hard and possessive and desperate, like he was trying to claim every part of me at once. I melted against him, my hands fisting in his blood-stained shirt, tasting violence and danger and something indefinably him. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. His eyes were nearly black with desire, his hands gripping my hips like he was afraid I'd disappear. "Tell me to stop," he said roughly. "Tell me this is too fast, too much. Tell me to leave. Don't leave." I pulled him closer. "Don't you dare leave." He groaned and kissed me again. Slower this time, but no less intense. His hands moved over my body with reverent possession, like he was memorizing every curve through the silk robe. "Not tonight," he said finally, pulling back with visible effort. "Not like this. Not when I'm still covered in another man's blood." He traced my swollen lips with his thumb. "When I take you, Emma, it will be right. Perfect. You deserve better than this." "I don't care. I do." He kissed my forehead, gentler now. "I care enough for both of us." He stepped back, putting distance between us that felt like miles. "Sleep. We'll talk in the morning." "Dante, wait." I caught his hand. "Your sister came to see me tonight." His expression darkened. "What did Alessia say?" "That you're dangerous, that people around you get hurt." I held his gaze. "That you claim things and keep them." "She's right. No apology. Just brutal honesty. Everything she said is true." "I don't care." "You will. Eventually." He pulled his hand free, but the loss of contact felt physical. "But by then, it will be too late. You'll already be too deep in my world to escape. Maybe I don't want to escape. You say that now." A sad, knowing smile. "We'll see if you still feel that way when you really understand what it means to be mine." He left then, closing the door softly behind him. I stood there in the middle of my gilded cage, my lips still tingling from his kiss, my body aching for more. I was in so much trouble. Morning came too soon, sunlight streaming through the French doors and pulling me from restless dreams of blood and kisses, and dark eyes that saw too much. Someone had left fresh clothes outside my door, designer jeans that fit perfectly, a soft cashmere sweater in deep burgundy, even new undergarments in exactly my size. The level of preparation should have been creepy. Instead, it felt like being cared for in a way I'd never experienced. Teresa found me wandering the hallways, trying to find my way back to the dining room. "Mr. Salvatore is in his office," she said kindly. "He asked that you join him for breakfast there." She led me through a maze of corridors to a set of heavy wooden doors. Inside, Dante sat behind an enormous desk covered in papers and laptops and phones. He was on a call, speaking rapid Italian, but his eyes locked on mine the moment I entered. He held up one finger, "Wait," and finished his conversation. Then he stood, rounding the desk to greet me. "You look beautiful," he said, his voice rough like he hadn't slept either. "The clothes. How did you know my size?" "I pay attention." He guided me to a small table by the window where breakfast was already laid out. "Did you sleep?" "Not really." "Neither did I." He poured coffee for both of us, his movements graceful despite his bruised knuckles. I kept thinking about you in that room, so close but not close enough. Heat flooded my cheeks. Dante. We need to talk, Emma. He sat across from me, his expression serious. About what happens now. My stomach clenched. Are you sending me back? No. The word was immediate, forceful. Never. But you need to understand what you're agreeing to by staying here. By being with me. I'm listening. My world is dangerous. Enemies everywhere, both obvious and hidden. You'll need protection constantly. Guards, secure transport, vetted locations only. Your freedom will be limited. For how long? As long as you're with me. His eyes held mine. Possibly forever. The word hung between us, heavy with promise and threat. There's more, he continued. My family, my associates, they'll see you as a weakness, something to exploit or eliminate. You'll be a target simply because you matter to me. You're trying to scare me away. I'm trying to be honest. He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. I'm giving you a choice, Emma. Stay, accept this life. Accept me, all of me, the violence and danger and darkness, or I'll arrange for you to leave the city. New identity, new start somewhere far from here. You'll be safe, protected, but gone. And if I stay? His grip tightened on my hand. If you stay, you're mine, completely. No going back, no changing your mind when things get hard. You'll belong to me in every way that matters. I should have been terrified by the possessiveness in his voice, the absolute certainty, but instead, I felt something warm and dangerous unfurl in my chest. I want to stay, I whispered. Emma. I want to stay, I repeated, stronger now. I choose you. This. Whatever consequences come. He stared at me for a long moment, something vulnerable flickering behind his dark eyes. Then he stood, pulling me up with him, his hands framing my face. You're sure? His voice was rough. Once you say yes, I won't let you go. I'm sure. He kissed me then, deep and claiming and full of dark promise. When he pulled back, his eyes burned with possession. Mine, he said simply. You're mine now, Emma Blake. And I take care of what's mine. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of contradictions. Luxury and captivity, safety and danger, tenderness and possession all tangled together until I couldn't separate one from the other. Dante kept his word. I was protected, cared for, given everything I could possibly need. But I was also watched, guarded, confined to the estate, and a handful of secure locations. My world had shrunk to the size of his protection, and some days it felt like breathing through a straw. But then he'd look at me with those dark, hungry eyes, and I'd forget why freedom had ever mattered. We fell into a rhythm. Mornings in his office while he worked, me curled up on the leather sofa with my nursing textbooks. He'd enrolled me in the spring program, paid for everything, arranged for private tutors to help me catch up. Afternoons in the gardens when the weather allowed, his hand always at my back, his guards always just out of sight. Evenings together, talking about everything and nothing, learning each other in increments. He told me about growing up in his father's shadow, about the violence that shaped him, about the sister he'd saved from the same fate by keeping her close instead of letting her run. I told him about my mother's death, about the loneliness of being invisible, about the dreams I'd carried to New York, and how small they seemed now in comparison to the life I'd stumbled into. And at night, he'd kiss me goodnight at my door and walk away, leaving me aching and frustrated and desperately wanting more. Why won't you stay? I asked one night. 3 weeks into my captivity, my protection, we stood in the doorway of my suite, his hands on my waist, mine fisted in his shirt. Because when I finally have you, Emma, it won't be rushed. It won't be half measures. His thumb traced my lower lip. It will be everything. And you're not ready for everything yet. I am ready. No. He kissed me softly, then pulled back. You're still adjusting to this world, still processing what it means to be mine. When you fully understand, when you're certain beyond any doubt. His eyes darkened with promise. Then I'll give you everything you're begging for. It was maddening, perfect, torture. The breakthrough came on a cold December morning, 5 weeks after the shooting. I was in the library, another beautiful room I'd claimed as my own. when Alessia found me. She'd kept her distance mostly, though I'd caught her watching me sometimes with an expression I couldn't quite read. "He's different with you," she said without preamble, settling into the chair across from mine. "Softer, more human. I don't know about that. I do. I've known my brother my entire life, and I've never seen him like this." She studied me carefully. "He killed 3 men last week. Did he tell you?" My stomach clenched. "No. They were trying to move in on our territory. Thought Dante was distracted because of you." A sharp smile. "They were wrong. He's more dangerous now because he has something to protect, something worth being ruthless for." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to understand what you are to him." She leaned forward, her expression intense. "You're not just his obsession or his possession. You're his redemption, the one good, pure thing in his dark world. And he will burn everything down to keep you safe. That's terrifying." "Yes, but it's also love, in the only way a man like Dante can love." She stood, touching my shoulder gently. "Don't break his heart, Emma. I don't think either of us would survive it." That night, everything changed. We were having dinner, just the 2 of us as usual, when one of his guards burst into the dining room, face pale. "Boss, we have a situation." Dante was on his feet instantly. "All business." "What kind of situation?" "The Marchetti family. They've taken one of our warehouses. 3 men dead, 2 injured." The guard's eyes flicked to me nervously. "They're saying it's retaliation for what you did to Luca Castellano. That you've gone soft over a woman." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Dante's expression went cold and lethal, the transformation so complete it was like watching someone flip a switch. "Get everyone to the safe room," he ordered. "Full lockdown protocol." "Dante," I started. "Not now, Emma." He was already moving toward the door, pulling a gun from somewhere I hadn't even noticed he was carrying. "Go with Teresa. Stay in the safe room until I come for you." "No." I stood, my voice stronger than I felt. "I'm not hiding while you go to war." He turned back, and the look in his eyes should have terrified me. "This isn't negotiable. Neither is this." I crossed to him, grabbing his jacket. "I chose this life. Your life. I don't get to hide from the consequences just because they're ugly. Emma, these men will kill you without blinking if they get the chance. They'll use you against me, hurt you to hurt me. I can't—" His voice cracked slightly. "I can't protect you and fight them at the same time." "Then don't fight them." I held his gaze. "Call them. Negotiate. Show them that you haven't gone soft. You've gotten smarter. That you're still the man who took over this city in 6 months." Something shifted in his expression. He cupped my face, his thumb tracing my cheekbone. "You're too good for this world." "No. I'm exactly right for your world, because I see both sides of you, the monster and the man, and I'm not afraid of either." He kissed me hard, desperately, like I was his anchor in a storm. When he pulled back, his eyes were clearer, more focused. "Luca," he said to his guard, "get Marchetti on the phone. Tell him I want to talk." The negotiation took 3 hours. I stayed by Dante's side in his office, watching him work. This was a side of him I'd only glimpsed before. Cold, calculating, ruthlessly intelligent. He gave nothing away, negotiated from a position of absolute strength, even though we both knew the Marchetti family had drawn blood. In the end, they agreed to return the warehouse and pay restitution for the dead men. In exchange, Dante would allow them to expand into territory he'd been blocking, and he'd arrange a marriage alliance between Alessia and one of the Marchetti sons. "You can't do that," I said when he hung up, horrified. "You can't force your sister to marry someone." "Alessia agreed to it 2 years ago. It's been planned since before you arrived." He pulled me into his arms, exhausted. "She understands how alliances work in our world. That's barbaric. That's survival." He kissed my forehead. "But you're right. I have gotten smarter. A year ago, I would have gone to war, lost men, weakened my position. Tonight, I secured peace and expanded our influence." His eyes met mine. "Because you were here. Because you made me see another way." "I didn't do anything. You did everything." His hands framed my face. "You saved my life that night in the cafe. But you've been saving me every day since, making me better, giving me a reason to be more than just the monster everyone expects. Tears burned my eyes. Dante, I love you, Emma Blake. The words were raw, honest, perfect. I'm obsessed with you, possessed by you. You're in my blood, in my bones, in every breath I take. And I will spend the rest of my life proving that you made the right choice when you chose me. I love you too. The words came easily, naturally. I've loved you since that first night, when you covered my body with yours and looked at me like I mattered, like I was worth protecting. You are worth protecting. He lifted me effortlessly, carrying me toward the door. You're worth everything. Where are we going? My room. His eyes were dark with promise and hunger. You said you were ready for everything. Let me give you everything, Emma. Let me show you exactly what it means to be mine. My heart raced, but I didn't hesitate. Yes. His room was at the opposite end of the house, larger than my suite, more masculine, dominated by a massive bed with dark sheets. He set me down gently, his hands already working the buttons of my sweater. Tell me if it's too much, he said quietly. Tell me if you need me to stop. I won't need you to stop. I pulled him down for a kiss. I need you, Dante. All of you. What happened next was everything he'd promised. Intense, consuming, perfect. He worshipped every inch of me with hands that were gentle despite their violence, with lips that whispered promises and possession in equal measure. He took his time, learning what made me gasp, what made me arch against him, what made me beg. And when he finally made me his in every way that mattered, I felt complete, for the first time in my life, like all the broken pieces of me had found their place in his arms, in his darkness, in his desperate, dangerous love. Afterward, we lay tangled together, my head on his chest, his fingers tracing patterns on my bare skin. No going back now, he murmured against my hair. I don't want to go back. I kissed his scarred knuckles. This is where I belong. With you. Even with the danger, the violence, the constant threat, especially with those things. I raised my head to meet his eyes, because they're part of you, and I love all of you. Not despite the darkness, but including it. He pulled me closer, his arms bands of steel around me. You're mine forever, Emma Blake. In this life and whatever comes after, forever, I agreed. I'm yours forever. 6 months later, I graduated from nursing school with honors. Dante was there, front row, looking completely out of place among the other families, but fiercely proud. Alessia sat beside him, pregnant with the Marchetti air and surprisingly happy about it. Turned out her arranged husband was actually decent, and they'd found something real in their political alliance. I started working at a clinic that Dante owned, treating people from his world and beyond. It wasn't exactly what I'd dreamed of, but it was meaningful. I was helping people, making a difference, using my mother's legacy to bring some light into the darkness. And every night, I came home to Dante, to our estate, our life, our love built on the foundation of violence and protection, and absolute devotion. It wasn't a normal life. It wasn't safe or simple or easy. But it was ours. He still protected me obsessively, still watched me with those possessive dark eyes, still touched me like I was something precious he'd fought wars to keep. And I still saw both sides of him, the ruthless Don who ruled Brooklyn's underworld, and the man who held me like I was his entire world. On our wedding day, a small, intimate ceremony in the estate's gardens, he pulled me close as we danced under the stars. Any regrets? He asked quietly. I thought about that night in the cafe, about the split-second decision to pull him behind me, about how one moment of instinct had led me here, to this man, this life, this dangerous, perfect love. Not a single one, I whispered. You're worth every risk, Dante Salvatore. And you, Emma Salvatore. He kissed me softly, thoroughly. Are worth burning the entire world down for. I believed him. I'd seen him do it after all, and I'd do it all again, exactly the same way, because some things, some people, are worth the danger, worth the sacrifice, worth choosing again and again, no matter the cost. He was my salvation in the darkness, and I was his light in the shadows. Forever.